Oh, hello there. Finally, some nice weather outside. The ships will be coming into port again. Would you like to sit with me and hear the final part of Odysseus's tale to the Phaeacians? Very well then.
After we were clear of the river Oceanus and had got out into the open sea, we went on till we reached the Aeaean island where there is dawn and sunrise as in other places. We drew our ship onto the sands and got out upon the shore, where we went to sleep and waited till day should break. When the child of morning, rosy-fingered Dawn, appeared, I sent some men to Circe's house to fetch the body of Elpenor. We cut firewood from a wood where the headland jutted out into the sea, and after we had wept over him and lamented him, we performed his funeral rites. When his body and armor had been burned to ashes, we raised a cairn, set a stone over it, and at the top fixed the oar that he had used to row with. While we were doing all this, Circe, who knew that we had got back from the house of Hades, dressed herself and came to us as fast as she could, and her maidservants came with her, bringing us bread, meat, and wine. Then she stood in the midst of us and said, "You have done a bold thing in going down alive to the house of Hades, and you will have died twice to other people's once. Now, stay here for the rest of the day, feast your fill, and go on with your voyage at daybreak tomorrow morning. In the meantime, I will tell you about your course, and will explain everything so as to prevent your suffering from misadventure, either by land or sea." We agreed to do as she had said, and feasted through the livelong day to the going down of the sun. When the sun had set and it came on dark, the men laid themselves down to sleep by the stern cables of the ship. Then Circe took me by the hand and bade me be seated away from the others, while she reclined by my side and asked me all about our adventures. "So far so good," said she when I had ended my story, "and now pay attention to what I am about to tell you. Heaven itself will recall it to your recollection. First, you will come to the Sirens who enchant all who come near them. If anyone unwarily draws in too close and hears their singing, his wife and children will never welcome him home again, for they sit in a green field and warble him to death with the sweetness of their song. There is a great heap of dead men's bones lying all around, with the flesh still rotting off them. Therefore, pass these Sirens by, and stop your men's ears with wax that none of them may hear. But if you like, you can listen yourself. Get the men to bind you as you stand upright on a crosspiece halfway up the mast, and lash the rope's ends to the mast itself, that you may have the pleasure of listening. When your crew have taken you past these Sirens, I cannot give you coherent directions as to which of two courses you are to take. I will lay the two alternatives before you, and you must consider them for yourself. On the one hand, there are some overhanging rocks against which the deep blue waves of amphitrite beat with terrific fury. The blessed gods call these rocks the Wanderers. Here, not even a bird may pass, not even the timid doves that bring ambrosia to Father Zeus. No ship that ever yet came to these rocks has got away again, but the waves and whirlwinds of fire are freighted with wreckage and the bodies of dead men. The only vessel that ever sailed and got through was the famous Argo on her way from the house of Aeetes, and she too would have gone against these great rocks, only that Hera piloted her past them for the love she bore to Jason. Of these two rocks, the one reaches heaven, and its peak is lost in a dark cloud. This never leaves it, so that the top is never clear, not even in summer and early autumn. No man, though he had 20 hands and 20 feet, could get a foothold on it and climb it, for it runs sheer up, as smooth as though it had been polished. In the middle of it there is a large cavern, looking west and turned towards Erebus. You must take your ship this way, but the cave is so high up that not even the stoutest archer could send an arrow into it. Inside it, Scylla sits and yelps with a voice that you might take to be that of a young hound. But in truth she is a dreadful monster, and no one, not even a god, could face her without being terror-struck. She has 12 misshapen feet, and 6 necks of the most prodigious length. At the end of each neck, she has a frightful head with 3 rows of teeth in each, all set very close together, so that they would crunch anyone to death in a moment. She sits deep within her shady cell, thrusting out her heads and peering all round the rock, fishing for dolphins or dogfish or any larger monster that she can catch. No ship ever yet got past her without losing some men, for she shoots out all her heads at once and carries off a man in each mouth. You will find the other rock lie lower, but they are so close together that there is not more than a bowshot between them. A large fig tree in full leaf grows upon it, and under it lies the sucking whirlpool of Charybdis. 3 times in the day does she vomit forth her waters, and 3 times she sucks them down again. See that you be not there when she is sucking, for if you are, Poseidon himself could not save you. You must hug the Scylla side and drive your ship by as fast as you can, for you had better lose 6 men than your whole crew. Is there no way, said I, of escaping Charybdis, and at the same time keeping Scylla off when she is trying to harm my men? You daredevil, replied the goddess. You are always wanting to fight somebody or something. You will not let yourself be beaten even by the immortals. For Scylla is not mortal. Moreover, she is savage, extreme, rude, cruel, and invincible. There is no help for it. Your best chance will be to get by her as fast as ever you can. For if you dawdle about her rock while you're putting on your armor, she may catch you with a second cast of her 6 heads, and snap up another half-dozen of your men. You will now come to the Thrinacian island, and here you will see many herds of cattle and flocks of sheep belonging to the sun god, 7 herds of cattle and 7 flocks of sheep, with 50 head in each flock. They do not breed, nor do they become fewer in number, and they are tended by the goddesses Phaethusa and Lampetie, who are children of the sun god Helios by Neaera. Their mother, when she had borne them and had done suckling them, sent them to the Thrinacian island to live there and look after their father's flocks and herds. If you leave these flocks unharmed, and think of nothing but getting home, you may yet after much hardship reach Ithaca. But if you harm them, then I forewarn you of the destruction both of your ship and of your comrades, and even though you may yourself escape, you will return late, in bad plight, after losing all your men. Here she ended, and dawn enthroned in gold began to show in heaven, whereon she returned inland. I then went on board and told my men to loose the ship from her moorings. So they at once got into her, took their places, and began to smite the grey sea with their oars. Presently the great and cunning goddess Circe befriended us with a fair wind that blew dead aft and stayed steadily with us, keeping our sails well filled. So we did whatever wanted doing to the ship's gear, and let her go as wind and helmsman headed her. We had not gone far when I said to my men, Friends, it is not right that 1 or 2 of us should know the prophecies which Circe has made me. I will tell you about them, so that we may know beforehand what dangers we are to meet, and either die or escape death together. Then I told them all that Circe had said, and warned them especially about the Sirens. You must all stop your ears with wax, so that none of you may hear their song. But if I wish to hear it, bind me fast to the mast, standing upright, and lash the ropes securely. If I beg you to release me, then bind me faster still. Thus I told them everything, and while our ship was going as fast as it could, we came presently to the island of the 2 Sirens. For the wind had fallen, and there was a dead calm without a breath of air stirring. The men, therefore, took down the sails and stowed them inside the ship, then took their places upon the benches and made the sea white with the flash of their oars. Meanwhile, I had cut a large round cake of wax into pieces with my sword, and kneaded them in my strong hands until the sun's heat had softened them. Then I stopped the ears of all my men, and they bound me hands and feet to the mast, standing upright upon the crosspiece, with the rope's ends fastened to it. When we were as far off shore as a man's voice can carry, the Sirens saw our ship drawing near, and began with their singing. Come here, they sang, renowned Odysseus, glory of the Achaeans, stop your ship that you may hear the voices of us too. Never yet has any man passed us without staying to hear the sweet song that comes from our lips. He who listens to us returns home delighted, and knowing more than he did before. For we know all the pains that the Greeks and Trojans suffered on the wide plain of Troy, and we know everything that is going to happen over the whole world. They sang these words in a lovely voice, and my heart longed to hear them still further. I motioned with my eyebrows that my men should set me free, but they bent to their oars, and Eurylochus rose at once and bound me tighter. When we had got beyond the hearing of the Sirens, my men took the wax from their ears and unbound me. But we had hardly left the island behind when I saw smoke and breakers, and heard a great roaring sound. The men were so frightened that the oars dropped from their hands, and the ship stopped where she was, for the stream had no longer any way of driving her forward. Then I went round from man to man, and tried to put heart into them. "My friends," I said, "we are not going into any unknown danger. We have already been through worse troubles than these. Remember the day when the Cyclops shut us in his cave, and how I delivered you through my courage and cunning. I believe we shall escape this danger also, if we keep our heads and obey orders." Then I told the helmsman to keep the ship away from the smoke and breakers, and to steer her close under the Scylla side. But I said nothing about the other danger, for I knew that the men would lose all heart if I told them. I had forgotten Circe's order that I was not to arm myself under any circumstances. So I put on my cuirass and took 2 spears in my hands. Then went forward to the bows, thinking that I should see Scylla first from that point. But I could see nothing, for I was looking everywhere towards the dark rock in hope of seeing her, while she was snatching my men from the ship. We sailed on, and the men were terrified, while Scylla carried off 6 of them from the ship, the best and bravest that we had. I could see their hands and feet, already lifted high above me, struggling and calling upon me by name for the last time, the most horrible sight that I have ever seen throughout all my sufferings by land and sea. I looked towards the rock, and watched them still tossing in the air as Scylla bore them into her cave, and there was nothing I could do to save them. We were now out of reach of Scylla and Charybdis, and came to the Thrinacian island, where are the goodly cattle of the sun. The lowing of the cattle as we drew near, and the bleating of the sheep, reminded me of the prophecy of the blind prophet Tiresias, and of Circe of Aea, who had both of them told me that I was to shun the island of the sun god. Therefore I said to my men, "Listen to me, my friends. We must pass this island by, and keep on our course." But Eurylochus answered me, "Odysseus, you are cruel. You are made of iron, and never let your men rest when they are tired out with hard work. This is an island where we can sleep and take our ease. But you would have us go on wandering over the sea by night, which is the time when the winds blow hardest. Let us stay here and cook our suppers by the ship, and at daybreak we will go on with our voyage." I knew that he was right, and the men agreed with him. Therefore I consented. But I made them swear solemnly that they would not touch any of the cattle or sheep, and that they would content themselves with whatever provisions Circe had given us. They swore as I bade them. And when they had taken the ship into a harbor where there was a stream of fresh water, they prepared their suppers. When they had had enough to eat and drink, they mourned the comrades whom Scylla had carried off and eaten, till they fell asleep. I too lay down, but sleep did not long hold me. I was thinking about the dangers that still lay before us, and before I knew where I was, I found myself fast asleep. During the night a terrible west wind sprang up, and blew with hurricane force, so that the men were obliged to draw the ship further up the shore. Then I called them together and said, "My friends, we have some provisions left from what Circe gave us. Therefore let us not touch these cattle, or we shall bring great trouble upon ourselves." They promised once more that they would obey me, and for a month the south wind blew steadily, nor did any other wind come except the east wind and the south wind. As long as the bread and wine held out, they kept their hands off the cattle, for they were afraid to do anything that would cost them their lives. But when our provisions were all gone, they began to wander about the island, hunting whatever they could find, whether fish or fowl, for they were starving. I went inland to pray to the gods, hoping that some one of them might show me a way of getting away. When I had got well away from the men, I washed my hands in a sheltered place and prayed to all the gods in heaven. But they would give me no sign, and presently I fell into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Eurylochus was giving evil counsel to my men. "Listen to me," said he. "You are suffering hardships, and there is no misery like hunger. Let us kill some of the best of these cattle and offer a sacrifice to the gods. If we ever get back to Ithaca, we will build a great temple to the sun god Helios and adorn it with many offerings. But if he is angry because we have killed his cattle and wishes to wreck our ship, I would rather die at once than linger here and be slowly starved to death. His words persuaded them, and they at once drove the best of the cattle close up to the ship. There were some fine bay cattle with broad foreheads, and they sacrificed them to the gods, cutting oak leaves from a tall tree, for they had no barley meal. After they had butchered the cattle, they stripped the hides and cut off the thighs, wrapping them in fat and making a double layer. They cut the rest up small and put it upon the spits. Meanwhile, I awoke and set off towards the ship and the sea. As I drew near, I could smell the savor of the roast meat, and cried aloud in my anguish. "Father Zeus," I exclaimed, "and all you other gods who live forever, you have surely lulled me into an evil sleep, and my men have done a terrible thing while I have been lying here." Then Lampede, daughter of the sun god Helios, went at once and told her father that we had killed his cattle. "Father Zeus," said Helios, "avenge me on the companions of Odysseus. They have killed the cattle in which I took such delight, both when I was going up heaven and when I was going down again. If they do not expiate this sin, I will go down to Hades and shine among the dead." "Son," answered Zeus, "continue to shine upon us gods and upon mortal men over the rich earth. I will soon pay these wicked men in full." Thus the son spoke, and I was told all this afterwards by Calypso, who had heard it from Hermes. When I had gotten down to the seashore, I found my men feasting upon the cattle, and I reproached them bitterly for what they had done. But there was nothing that could now undo it. For 6 days my men continued feasting upon the best of the sun god's cattle. But when the 7th day came, we got on board our ship and sailed away. When we were now well out of sight of the island, and there was no other land near us, Zeus gathered the clouds together over our heads, and the sea grew dark beneath them. A west wind came on suddenly and blew hard, while the sky became black with clouds. We did not get far before the wind broke our forestays, and the mast fell aft, so that all the rigging fell about the ship. The mast struck the head of the pilot, and crushed his skull as though it had been an eggshell. He fell from the deck as a diver falls, and his life left his bones. Zeus then let fly with his thunderbolt, and struck the ship, so that she reeled all over, and was filled with sulphurous smoke. The men fell overboard, and went round the ship like seagulls, but the god would not let them get home any more. I remained on board, but the mast and keel were parted from one another, and the ship broke in two. The keel and mast drifted together, and I bound them with a long rope of oxhead, then sat astride them, being carried along by the winds. The west wind died down, but a south wind rose, bringing with it the fear that I should have to cross back to Charybdis. All night long I drifted, and at sunrise I came once more to Scylla and Charybdis. It was just the time when Charybdis began to suck down the sea, and I was carried towards her. I let go of the mast and keel, and caught hold of the wild fig tree that grew over the whirlpool. I clung to it like a bat, and could neither climb up the tree nor get down again, for the roots were too far away, and the branches were too high. There I hung, waiting till Charybdis should vomit up the mast and keel again. At last they appeared, and I dropped from the tree, and threw myself upon them, paddling desperately with my hands. The father of gods and men kept me hidden from Scylla's sight, or I should not have escaped her had she seen me then. From there I was carried for 9 days, and on the 10th night the gods cast me upon the island of Ogygia, where the great goddess Calypso lives, and she took me in and cared for me. But why should I tell you this? I told you the whole story yesterday, and I dislike repeating myself before those who have already heard me.
Thus Odysseus ended his story, and at last earned his rest. And my eyes are starting to close as well. So I shall end my tale for tonight. Should you come tomorrow, I suspect there will be rather more customers. And I shall tell the tale of how the gods finally took pity on poor Odysseus and opened his way home.